Hello, I'm Robert Walker, fact checker and science blogger, and I'm helping people who are scared of many things. In this case, people who are scared of the story about 3 days of darkness. There won't be 3 days of darkness. This is impossible, and I'm going to explain why. So, this shows what Earth will be like on the let's go forward one more day, 21st of December, which is the day when the Saturn and Jupiter are especially close together as seen from Earth. Notice that there's nothing between the Earth and the Sun. And the Sun is not like a light. The Sun can't switch off. The Sun has enough fuel of hydrogen burning to helium to last it for billions of years. It's not going to stop shining. The Moon is to one side, so the Moon can't get in the way. Jupiter and Saturn are on the far side of the Sun. So there's no way that they can cast any shadows. Then I want to explain, on the 21st of December, it's a half moon. The Moon can only block out the Sun for a few minutes during new moon. So it can't block out the Sun at all. The Moon won't block out even a second of sunlight on the 21st of December. And then I want to give you an idea, so how far away it is. This is about how far away these planets are. If you were travelling in a 747, then if you travel 19 years non-stop around the Earth, going round and round and round, at the speed of the fastest passenger jet, it would take 19 years to travel this distance. It would take you 120 years to travel this distance, nearly 200 years to travel this distance. So think about that, travelling non-stop, day and night, in your 747, just going on and on and on and on for 200 years, and that's how long it would take to get as far away as Saturn, to get the same distance as to Saturn. The solar system is huge. So then I want to explain about the 3 planets, or is it 2 planets? So I will bring that up, this other program, this one. This one shows the planets. That's Jupiter and Saturn on the 21st. They will be so close together that they look like a single star. And Pluto, if you go back to this one, see, Pluto is very, very, very far away, and it's also tiny. It's so far away that you need a large telescope, an amateur, like a medium-sized amateur telescope, and not a small telescope, to see it when it's very dark. And this time, when the sky is quite light, completely invisible even for most amateur telescopes. So that's why these people don't mention it. It's also very far from Jupiter and Saturn. So the 2 bright planets and 1 invisible planet in the sky. And then, just to show you then what you would see with a small telescope, then you would see Saturn, Jupiter, and the moons of Jupiter. If you've got a very good telescope, you also see Saturn's moon, very good binoculars. So this is what you see with binoculars. If you have very good binoculars for astronomers, very wide aperture and very good astronomer binoculars, then you might just see the rings of Saturn very, very faint, very difficult to make out, and you just spot the Saturn's biggest moon, Titan. Then if you come in further, then this is what you see with a pretty decent telescope. Then you'll start seeing a lot more detail. You'll see the bands of Jupiter, and you'll start seeing the ring system of Saturn quite clear. And then, very, very good, you could go like that. So, if you just look at it with naked eye, all you see is a single bright star. It's still quite fun for naked eye, because you can follow it. And I recommend you can go out at about a quarter of an hour after sunset then you should see the two planets. And this is each day coming up to the 21st. You see they get closer and closer, and then they cross each other in the sky. So what else am I going to tell you about? I'm going to explain about lunar eclipses, because what I want to explain is that that you can't have 3 days of darkness ever. So if I go back to this, so now if I go back in time, there was a solar eclipse on the 14th. I want to show why even a solar eclipse can't last very long. So when you have a solar eclipse, now these are hugely exaggerated in size. It's got these settings here. I'll just show you how it works. Then go right up the top of the page. Then if you go realistic, then that's what Earth is like. You can make it a bit larger, and then this is a greatly large Earth. So that's to make it easier to see the planets, but they're actually much smaller. So small you wouldn't actually see them at this scale. And so the Earth, if you look at it like that, there you can see that the Moon is much smaller than the Earth. So there's no way that the Moon can ever block out the Sun. Never block out the full Sun. All it can do is cast a tiny shadow on one little spot of Earth. It can't block out sunlight from the entire day side of Earth. And in case, just for those of you who are new to that sort of thing, they don't show which side the planet's lit up in this simulation, but this side is daytime and that side is night, because it's on the far side of Earth from the Sun. So this now shows, this is an actual photographs from space, and you can see the Moon's shadow and how it crosses the Pacific Ocean. It's actually travelling very fast across the Pacific Ocean, and it turns out it's actually travelling at supersonic speed. The Moon's shadow travels at the speed of a 747 of Concorde, not a 747. And because of that, the shadow doesn't spend much time over any place. And to explain again a little bit about how, remember, the Moon is very small. It's a bit like if I hold up leave my finger in front of the Sun, then I can block it for me with one eye open and the other eye closed. But if someone's just a meter away from me, then my finger won't block out the Sun. In the same way, if you were at this point in time, someone in Australia was looking at the Sun, and someone just in the middle of the Pacific Ocean was looking at the Sun, the person in Australia would not see any eclipse. The person in the middle of the Pacific Ocean at this moment would see the Sun blocked out, and they would get the glorious sight of the solar corona. There's a white area around the Sun, which you can only see during the solar eclipse, because when you block out the brightest part of the Sun, you see this very faint white bit around it, and then and the sky will go dark if you are in the middle of that shadow. That is very spectacular and very lovely, and it only lasts for a few minutes. It can never last more than 7 minutes and 32 seconds. So the longest darkness you can ever have is just for a few minutes. You can never have a quarter of an hour of darkness anywhere, except obviously at night. So 3 days of darkness is totally impossible. It's never going to happen, ever. Now, and so I've explained what it looks like, and now you've got to explain what it looks like. I don't think I did. So, excuse me if I'm repeating myself. This is what it looks like on the 21st. Jupiter and Saturn look like a single star with naked eye. And I recommend, no, I don't think I've said this, so I recommend that you go out and find it on the nights before, and this is a series of images for these are each successive days, getting closer and closer and closer and closer. So if you go out and look a few days before and see Jupiter and Saturn apart from each other in the sky, it's much more interesting. It also helps you to see where to look when the actual day comes, because they might well be, it's quite low on the horizon, and might well get hidden behind a tree. If you look out a bit further, you can see that's sort of a bit more like it. And if you were close to that tree, it would be stuck behind the tree, you wouldn't see it. And so if you've got a nearby house, or nearby tree, or a more distant mountain, you just won't see it. So I suggest looking for it beforehand, and then trying to find a good vantage point so you know where to be on the actual night, because you won't have very long. It appears 45 minutes after sunset is the best time, and then as it goes down, be near the horizon, harder to spot. And if it's too early, then you just see it against the bright blue sky. Now, you can see it against the bright blue sky if you are very careful. So obviously block out the sun. The sun will be to your right of Jupiter. So have the sun to your right, block out the sun, and stand in the shadow of a building. Then you can, and because the sun is moving to the right, you're very safe there. And so you can even use your binoculars to search. Then I suggest you get an app called Sky Safari Pro, and it's quite a bit of fun try and spot this in the daytime and against the blue sky. You mustn't look, don't search anywhere near the sun with binoculars. If the sun is in your field of view, make sure you're in a shadow, because the sun through binoculars can seriously damage your eyes. So once you've done that, then I suggest you get Sky Safari Pro, which is an app that you can buy for just a few dollars, and it lets you just show it work on mobile or on Android or for the Apple iPhone and so on. And you point at the sky as if you're going to take a photograph. It'll show you the preview of the sky, and it'll show you can choose different modes. You chose the right mode for this one, and it'll show you the planets actually positioned in the right place on the sky. So then you can pick it up and you say, oh, that's where it is. Then you can look at the real sky, and you might be able to see it. And if you see it in daytime, then it's just the faintest, the smallest white dot. The same brightness as the sky. It's just a difference of colour. A bright white dot against a bright blue sky. But if you've got decent vision, then you'll be able to see it. And you look out for difference of colour rather than something that's very bright in the daytime. A white speck amongst the blue sky. Obviously, got any clouds or anything, it'd be very hard to spot. Now, when it comes to the sunset, and you can see Jupiter, then if you got binoculars, then you'll see something like that. You'll see Jupiter, and you'll see its moons, and you'll see Saturn just next to it. Normally, you'll just see Jupiter and its moons. The new thing is you see Saturn, but you'll never see it so close to it in binoculars. You won't be able to see the two together. And this is your chance to see them so close together. Now, if you've got a decent telescope, if you've got decent binoculars, you've got astronomical binoculars designed for looking at planets, kind of very big ones, then you'll be able to just make out Saturn's rings, and you'll, as this kind of smudge, you make out Titan, Saturn's biggest moon. If you've got a decent small telescope, then you can make out a lot more detail, and you'll start seeing the rings of Saturn, and you'll see the bands of Jupiter. So those different. Certainly, if you've got binoculars, do go and get your binoculars out of the wherever you keep them, and it's well worth looking at this with binoculars. If you've got a friend with a small telescope, then you ask if you can have a look through the telescope, or if you've got one yourself. So that's that. So then the last thing I want to talk about is, so I've explained everything, the small moon, so the last thing I want to talk about, it's not on that page, but I thought I would just talk a little bit about this. That it's about how Jupiter and Saturn can't collide with each other or with Earth. So now if I look at this, I can now drag them around. And look, let's go in the future, way into the future, 20, 30, 40. It takes 12 years for Jupiter to go around, but note how it's stuck in its orbit. It never comes anywhere near Earth. There's Earth. Jupiter's out there. Jupiter never comes anywhere near Earth. Saturn never comes anywhere near Jupiter. It can't. It's in a different orbit. So Saturn I get people asking me, is Saturn going to collide with Jupiter on the 21st? You can now see it's never going to collide with Jupiter. No planets can ever collide with any other planets. Look at Venus. Now, it might seem, if we bring this around, eventually Venus will get quite close to Earth. It might look, it almost looks like Venus is colliding with the Moon there, but that's because of the settings. If I go there, the planets, as I said, are made very large. If I make them small, even a bit smaller, you can see that Venus is very far from Jupiter, from the Earth, and so are Mercury. And it's actually much smaller even than that. And Mars never comes near Earth either. None of them come anywhere near any of them. Let's go back to the largest ones. So now I want to explain something else. So the ancients, all the way through to the 18th century, they knew about Mercury, Venus, Earth. They didn't know about Ceres. They knew about Saturn, but didn't know about the rings. They knew about Jupiter. They didn't know about Jupiter's moons. And they knew about Saturn, as I said, didn't know about its rings. And that was it. Then I thought that was the ancients back to. And then when Galileo discovered the rings of Saturn and the moons of Jupiter, I think that was Galileo, 17th century, was it? '16th century, but 16th century. Sorry, I'm not quite sure when he actually discovered the planets. I could find out in a minute. You can find out easily. But anyway, so go back there. That Galileo discovered Jupiter's moons and Saturn's rings, and then it was Herschel in the 18th century who discovered Uranus in his telescope, and he discovered Uranus by he noticed this thing that didn't look quite star-like. And then Neptune was discovered by Leverrier, and what was his name? I forget his name, just out, skipped my mind, but it was calculated by someone in Britain, but the actual discovery was done by a Frenchman, and he calculated where it should be. So that was the 19th century. And Pluto was discovered early on in the 20th century, and then these other ones were discovered in the early 21st century, and they're kind of very small dwarf planets, they're called nowadays. So, and if you look at Pluto and if you look at Uranus, it's the same thing. Uranus never comes anywhere near Saturn. It's stuck in its orbit. And Neptune never comes anywhere near Uranus. If you keep going around for long enough, eventually it catch up with you. It takes a long time, but eventually it catches up with Uranus. Has it done it yet? I mean, Uranus catches up with Neptune. There we are. Uranus just about to catch up with Neptune, but it's very, very far from it. And so they're stuck in their orbits. And now we're looking for planet 9. If it exists, and it's a big looping orbit like that, it will never come anywhere. It'll be stuck in its orbit too. And it can never come anywhere near Neptune or Uranus or Saturn or Jupiter or Earth or Mars or Venus or Mercury. It'll never come near any of those. So you get these people saying they're looking for planet 9, it's going to hit Earth. Then these again, that's a complete hoax. It's impossible. And none of these things come anywhere near Earth. And you can actually show it's impossible to have a planet that could cross the other planets. These planets are about as close together as they can get. You can't fit anything else in the inner solar system. But you can fit more planets further away. And that's why they're looking for more further away planets. And so that's what Planet X is. So I just thought I'd explain that as well as a last kind of bonus thing. So the 3 days of darkness are impossible. It's never going to happen. Jupiter is never going to collide with Saturn. If we discover a planet way beyond Neptune, it's never going to come anywhere even near Neptune. It's going to be stuck in its orbit way, way out there, just like Uranus and Neptune and all the other planets. There's nothing here that is hazardous or harmful to us in any way whatsoever, and there never can be. And you never need to be afraid in any way of planets in our solar system. They can't harm you. All there is a very lovely sight in binoculars, especially in binoculars. Naked eye, you see this bright star, and if you can see them approaching each other, and with binoculars or a small telescope, you have a very lovely sight. Now, most of us, where I'm living, we have such cloudy weather, and anyway, I've got a big mountain to the south of me. I don't know if I could have a look, see if I could see it if we get some clear nights, but I think I might have to climb a hill to have a chance of seeing this. So, in case of climbing a hill at the right moment, and I don't know whether I might give that a go. But no, I'm not sure. I don't have much time, but we'll see. But it's very unlikely. We have days and days of rain and cloudy, and not likely to have a clear night. If we are going to have a clear night, I might think about trying to plan to see if I can have a look and see it. And so anyway, yes, so I do recommend go and have a look, and if you can't see it with your naked eye or with binoculars or a small telescope, still there'll be lots of photographs on the internet, you can be sure. And so it's a very lovely thing to look forward to one way or another, even if you just do it virtually and looking at photographs on the internet. So, hopefully this helps some of you to be less scared, and indeed you shouldn't be scared about this at all. There never was anything that in any way harmful, in any way scary. And it's just so sad, these false prophets who try to make you scared of things that are just beautiful. So anyway, hope this helps.